went to go get coffee, and I was approached by 8 armed FBI agents.
That's insane.
Yeah,
Wow.
who basically were like, Isabella DeLuca, we have a warrant for your arrest.
Wow.
They waited basically 3 years to come and arrest me. They give you your indictment to read over, and I'm reading, and I'm like, theft of government property? And the agent just looks at me, he's like, yeah, you stole a table.
What?
And I'm like,
What?
And I
Do you stole a table?
But then they put me in the back of an unmarked vehicle.
Are you serious?
Not
This is
just
Gavin
me.
Newsom's America, guys.
Biden's America, Democrats' America.
This is why Americans absolutely hate the federal government
Yes.
and have zero trust in the FBI.
We want to know who was trafficking these girls. Why is it too much to ask?
Now listen, the Biden DOJ sat on the files for 4 years, right? But it was basically a campaign promise that the files would be released. They did that whole thing with the influencers at the White House. Yep. I have my own opinion on that.
Before you give your opinion, I actually got one of those binders and I was there.
She
The
said,
reason why
unfortunately.
I am not pictured in that photo is because as soon as Pam Bondi brought out those damn binders, I knew exactly what she wanted, and it was a photo op.
Yes.
It's a slap in the face.
The American justice system is very performative, and it's very much just about creating, supporting, and inducing narratives.
They pick winners and
versus-
losers, and I have an issue with that.
Ladies, there's a reason for this. And guess who's behind that? It is George Soros and his affiliate organizations. He is funding this. This is not a coincidence. This is very intentional. Hi, everyone. It feels so good to be back, and thank you so much for your incredible support over the last couple of weeks. We see you, and we love you so much. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share. We would deeply appreciate it. Today, we have 2 fantastic guests, Isabella DeLuca and Savannah Hernandez. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming to join us today. Isabella is a conservative influencer and activist best known for her involvement in the January 6th Capitol events. She was finally pardoned by President Trump at the beginning of his 2nd term, and she is known for glam aesthetics, as we all can see, and unapologetic takes on gender, culture, and conservative youth identity. And we also have Savannah. Thank you so much for coming. She's a political commentator and reporter for Turning Point USA, known for her viral street interviews, border coverage, and sharp critiques of media bias. She was previously banned from Twitter, X, known as X now, and she brands herself as a truth teller, challenging censorship and establishment narratives. We have a lot to cover today. We're going to start with Isabella's firsthand account on everything that went down on January 6th. And then I'm going to dive deep into the government shutdown and tell you what exactly is driving the intransigence on both sides. And Anna is going to reveal yet another shocking turn Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene has made on a number of issues, including immigration. And finally, Amy is going to dive deep into all this drama surrounding the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yes, I can't wait to hear from you guys as well, being a part of Turning Point, to hear your perspectives. So.
Absolutely. We're going to start with just a few questions about everything that you experienced. This year has been a whirlwind for you.
Yes,
right?
it has. In a good way. In a good way.
Absolutely. Why don't we start from the beginning? Why were you there on January 6th? And then you were raided. I believe they even confiscated your laptop and your phone and devices.
Yes.
Tell us what that was all, what was that like?
Well, for January 6th, I mean, I was there with a couple friends. I was there for the reason that most people who went there were there for, which is to hear President Trump speak. Eventually, people started making their way down to the Capitol. We just kind of followed the crowd. I got caught up with some friends. I essentially ended up in a meeting room in the Capitol, just in the midst of all the chaos that was happening. While I was in that meeting room, probably all about 2 minutes, I put my hand on the table. And so the FBI knew that I was there 2 days after the fact. They waited basically 3 years to come and arrest me.
Wow.
Yeah, I was.
Did they find out from social media posts?
Okay, this is maybe where, this is a little bit my fault, too. They knew from my own social media posts that I was there, right? Nobody really ratted on me. It was kind of my fault that, if I could go back and redo it, I probably wouldn't have found myself in that environment. I don't feel like I necessarily did anything wrong. It's just more so, I don't think that was an environment I should have found myself in.
I have a question for you, because I think that, a lot of people on the left are under this impression that everyone who was in the Capitol building broke in violently. But I actually think there are 2 separate groups, right? So there's the group that you see in the initial videos, right? Breaking the windows, breaking into the Capitol. But then there were a lot of people who just kind of wandered into the Capitol after the fact. So my first question to you is, prior to going to D.C. to see Donald Trump speak, was it in any way in your mind that you were going to go into the Capitol building?
No.
You didn't expect to do that?
No, not at all. I mean, I know that there was some talk, because, you know, if you get a little more into it, you have Ray Epps, right, who the day before January 6th was encouraging people to go into the Capitol, was not under my understanding of any of that, was not aware of any of that. I don't think my parents would have let me go, to be honest, if they knew that that was what was going to happen. But again, to your point, there was violence that occurred that day, right?
Yeah. Yep.
We can't ignore that. But it was a very, very small niche and percentage of people that were violent on January 6th. And the media just completely capitalized on that. And I think that was interesting about my arrest too, because when you hear these stories about January 6th and you see the people that they're arresting, it's like, you know, these veterans and these guys that have served and like these big burly men, and then they arrest me and I'm just like some 5'1" blonde girl. I was in California for an event with Live Action actually, and I flew in, I was exhausted, I was having a rough morning, I went to go get coffee from downstairs, and I was approached by 8 armed FBI agents.
That's insane.
Yeah,
Wow.
who basically were like, Isabella DeLuca, we have a warrant for your arrest.
Wow.
You must have been
Thankfully,
terrified.
yeah, I was terrified, especially too because I wasn't close to home, and it's like even though I'm 24, like when you're in that moment, you still want your parents,
And
so
8 armed agents, like, oh yeah, that's totally proportionate force necessary for a
Yes.
5'1"
3 years
woman.
after
What?
it happened.
Yeah.
no criminal record, like not a
Right.
threat.
Okay, so this is under the Biden administration.
Yes.
Where was that energy for illegal aliens, by the way? That was the sort of attitude they should have brought to illegals.
$1 million
from my
question.
perspective.
$1 million. I mean, you have people. I mean, Savannah could probably, you know, attest to this because I'm sure you've seen it firsthand. Just, I mean, you have people that literally commit like heinous crimes in New York City, for instance,
Absolutely.
that get out same day that are treated with, you know, less harshness and force than
I also
than I
want
was.
to bring this back to something that just happened this week. I don't know if you saw, but Nancy Pelosi was yelling at a reporter on the Capitol steps.
Was it Allison?
I don't know who she was yelling
She
at.
told the girl to
Allison.
shut up.
Yeah.
Really, she got up in her face. We don't have a clip of this, but she got up in this reporter's face and said, "Shut up," when somebody asked her, why didn't you deploy the National Guard to the Capitol? And she blamed it on President Trump. I want to get your reaction to that.
I mean, listen, I'm not surprised that, you know, Nancy Pelosi is starting to blame Donald Trump and Republicans. I mean, she had an opportunity to deploy the National Guard. It was advised to her that she should have deployed the National Guard, and she specifically chose not to. I think they knew what was going to happen. I think they wanted it to happen because I think that they wanted to capitalize on it. And for the longest time, they did. I mean, they literally talked about January 6th like it was a national holiday for 4 years, that to the point when it came up to this 2024 election, I mean, listen, them using January 6th, I think, worked for a very long time in the media. I think, again, they capitalized on it for as long as they can. But then this past election, I feel like they still tried to use January 6th. And at that point, people didn't really care.
Well,
People
I mean, the video of Pelosi admitting that she should have ordered the National
Yes.
Guard came out. And for me, that was an eye-opening moment because she had denied that she had any responsibility. And, you know, she had an opportunity to do something and she decided not to. So, you know, people can speculate on what the motivations are for that. But what happened after you got arrested?
Okay, so they come and they arrest me. They take my phone because they take whatever's on your being when you're first arrested. Thankfully, I was staying in my friend's apartment at the time, so my laptop, my Apple Watch, any other devices I had got to stay in her place, so I didn't have to like hand them over to the FBI. But then they put me in the back of an unmarked vehicle,
Are you serious?
and they coordinated
like a
with
movie.
the Orange County Police Department, and I'm like, are you worried about me running away? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just the amount of force that was used and the amount of taxpayer money that went into not
This is
just
Gavin
me,
Newsom's America, guys.
Biden's America, Democrats' America, because, I mean, the amount of force that was used, not just over me, but other J6ers as well. I mean, there were people who genuinely had it a lot worse than me. And,
Yeah.
I mean, my experience alone was very traumatic. I mean, even now, like, if I'm driving and I pull up to my house and I see an unmarked vehicle, like, I get like this sinking feeling, even though I'm pardoned and I know I don't have anything going on. But yeah, they put me in the back of an unmarked vehicle. They brought me down to the Orange County Police Department, mugshotted, fingerprinted. By the way, so happy that mugshot has not come out. I know that it's a rough looking mugshot.
I mean, I bet you were really scared. Like, you're
Yes,
young
of
and, you know, I really appreciate that you are taking ownership. Like, I probably shouldn't have done that. But again, like for me, I do differentiate people like you from those who were seen on the videos, like literally breaking in.
In fact, could you corroborate this or disprove it? I heard that there were even officials in there like opening doors for people.
Oh, yeah.
There are
telling them,
videos of
directing
that.
them the
videos
way
of
to
that.
go. So at the end of the day, yes, these are two completely distinct categories of people. And I think that the people who were violent or using force, this was a very small percentage, but we know the way the media works, and that's probably why you said we can speculate why she didn't give that order.
Right.
I mean, I'm just going to straight out say what I think. It's so you can then create this spectacle, so you can showcase these quote-unquote violent people and kind of parade them as this caricature of violent MAGA.
Well,
this is what MAGA is.
What do you ladies think about, I mean, look, I read into your story, and I think you getting a pardon is totally fine. I have no problem with it. But you got a pardon from Trump in the beginning of his second term, 2025, this year. And he did a blanket pardon. So you're lumped in with the people who are literally seen on video, like battering police and stuff like that. Do you worry about that at all?
No, and I'll tell you why. I feel that there was really no due process with a lot of these J6 cases. And despite people who were seen on camera like assaulting officers and that were genuinely wrong, there was no due process for them. They were left sitting in solitary confinement, a lot of them, with no trial, no bail, nothing. And a lot of J6ers were basically forced to take pleas for things that they didn't do. For instance, the day before so just to go over what my charges were, they were all misdemeanor charges. It was like the basic trespassing and what everyone else was getting charged with. But then when I'm sitting in the FBI headquarters and they give you your statement of facts and they give you your indictment to read over, and I'm reading and I'm like, theft of government property, and the agent just looks at me, he's like, yeah, you stole a table.
What?
And I'm like,
what?
You
stole a table?
Listen, I literally laughed because like I couldn't believe that this grown man is telling me that I stole like this table.
Did you have a lawyer throughout this process, or were you just by yourself?
So this is the thing, the FBI lied to me, I know, shocker. They came to me, when they came to me in the beginning, I was like, well, can I call my mom? Can I call my lawyer? And
Did they give you Miranda rights? Like, did they say all that?
I think so. I don't know. I think I blocked it out,
literally
honestly.
The law, by the way.
Yes. And so I was like, well, can I call my lawyer and my mom? They're like, yeah, we'll let you call like after we like do our questioning.
No, you need to have a lawyer present at all times.
I had no idea, honestly. They assigned me a public defender and I was just like,
oh my God.
So the thing is I was like, I don't want to cry in front of these people because I feel like that's what they want. The FBI is very manipulative because on the way to the headquarters, they try and act like they're your friend, you know, like by having like these small conversations and are you feeling okay? And I'm like, you just arrested me. Like, what are you talking about? And I remember, so it was all guys, but they had one pregnant FBI officer who had a ride in the car with me.
And I'm sure that was very intentional.
Yes. And so she's talking to me and she's like, oh, so like, where are you from? And I literally turned to her and I'm like, why are you asking me questions you already know the answers to? Like, I'm from New York. I'm in California. You know exactly why I'm here. You know exactly where I'm from. I'm sure you like know my whole story. Like, it's kind of that manipulative tactic that I'm sure does work on some people. But yeah, they wanted to charge me with theft of government property, and I'm thinking to myself like, okay, trespassing, you know, whatever. You want me to like take accountability for the one thing I literally didn't do? And so when the FBI came to me the day before the election, by the way, with a plea deal, they said, if you plead guilty to stealing the table, you're going to spend a year in prison and you're going to have a $100,000 fine, but we'll drop your trespassing charges. And so for myself, as well as other J6ers, the entire election, like my livelihood rode on who won the election.
Wow.
What would have been the conviction for the trespassing? Because they said, we'll drop the trespassing if you plead guilty to this. Do you know what sentence the trespassing piece would have carried? Would it have been more than stealing the table?
I have no idea, to be honest. My thinking was like, you know, in my mind, I'm trying to be rational, right? Because the rational part of me is like, well, I don't have a criminal record. I've never been arrested. I've never been in any sort of trouble before. This occurred over 3 years ago at this point, and they're all misdemeanors. At the same time, I got the most liberal judge that I possibly could have gotten,
of course.
Judge Boasberg, who, by the way, I was on a plane after my pardon, and I'm watching the news on my flight, and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy who wants Venezuelan gang members, who wants Trump to turn them back around and bring them back to the United States, was wanting me to spend a year in prison and pay a $100,000 fine.
Can I just say, Isabella, like, this is why Americans absolutely hate the federal government and have zero trust in the FBI. And I didn't want to interrupt your story because it's so compelling, but I was there on January 6th as a reporter, and I was also there for the entirety of the Black Lives Matter riots during the summer of 2020. And when I tell you the difference in response that the DOJ had to January 6ers, to those riots, were night and day. And this is why people have zero trust in the federal government right here.
I was just going to say, where is that energy, not only for illegal aliens, but for their quote unquote summer of love, when they, I kid you not, cost $2 billion in damage? Who are where are the people being held responsible for that to this day? This is like 4 years later.
Well, I actually think when you consider where the country was culturally at that time, like leading up to January 6th, I didn't realize how much the federal government just kind of being hands off when it came to the rioting during that summer had basically like motivated or convinced others on the other side of the political aisle that this type of anarchy is totally okay. Because if they're doing it, why can't we do it? I think that it wasn't really a spoken thing. It was more unsaid. But the more I talk to people on the right about the motivations behind storming the Capitol, they tend to, you know, talk about what happened that summer and how they're angry that there were no consequences for that. And there were, like, Seattle's a good example, right? I think that's where they took over an area, referred to it as the autonomous zone.
Minnesota as well.
People got killed, shot and killed as a result of that. So there was violence on the left end of things that never really got addressed.
And that is spot on. And not only that, it's also Minnesota and how Governor Tim Walz came out and basically induced more riots. And Kamala Harris, literally, I kid you not, tweeted a fundraiser in support of the very people who were setting American cities on fire. That is not okay.
I looked into that, and that's actually very true.
And you know what? It's true. I also, kid you not, the tweet is still up 5 years later. There's no shame in that. Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, all of these left-wing leaders, these so-called arbiters, you know, advocates of peace, they were actively inciting riots across America, inciting damage, wreaking havoc.
And you know what, Lindy, if I can jump in here too, because I do want to remind Americans of where the right wing was at before January 6th. You have to remember that we were dealing with the COVID shutdowns. We were dealing with BLM. We watched police officers go and arrest business owners for simply opening their businesses. And keep in mind, you had Gavin Newsom going to the French Laundry for dinner. You had Nancy Pelosi going and getting her hair done. So you had police officers going and arresting American citizens who simply wanted to work, while simultaneously looking the other way, while BLM targeted and burned down small businesses. On top of that, you sometimes had police officers who went and arrested Americans or charged Americans for trying to defend their own businesses during the BLM riots.
Remember the couple?
Yeah, so exactly. Those were the McCloskeys out of St. Louis. So what I want people to understand too is Donald Trump was kind of like the last beacon of hope for a lot of Americans who felt like the justice system was not standing up for them, who felt like the Democrats wanted them killed. And if you look at where we're at right now, it very much seems that way, that we have a lot of political violence that is coming from the left wing, from the Democratic Party. And so this was kind of like Americans' last chance at, like, okay, let's have our voices heard. I think that's why there was so much, tension that day during January 6th, so much anger, because Americans were getting arrested. Americans were not being seen. Americans were being, I guess, sacrificed at the altar of left-wing violence, and nobody did anything to help them.
Yeah, I think we totally underestimate, and I don't mean we as in this panel, but like as a country, really underestimated just how damaging the COVID era was, how much anger, resentment, and polarization, resulted from that. And look, the people in charge during that pandemic got a lot of things wrong. And so to your point, there's a lot of distrust toward the federal government, not just the FBI. Federal institutions, whether you're talking about the CDC, whether you're talking about the FBI, and you can't have a country if the people don't trust its government or its leadership
or its justice system.
Exactly.
You know, it seems like it's this revolving door, as is kind of what the American justice system has become, when you're sending 5 officers to pick up a 5'1" young woman, 8 officers.
Crazy.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yet
3 years later, by the
people
way.
like DeCarlos Brown, who then went on to savagely murder Irina Zaruska a couple of months ago now. That person was let in and out of the system like it was nothing.
14
You know, like just
14 times, Amy.
look at the disparity between these two individuals. For me, it just makes it seem like so often the American justice system is very performative, and it's very much just about creating, supporting, and inducing narratives.
They pick winners and losers, and I have an issue with that, right? Because in blue states, and I live in a blue state, so I can say this from personal experience, yeah, you have violent repeat offenders going in and out, in and out, in and out.
I mean, New York City is the same way.
New York
let's
City
not
is the
forget
same
Daniel
way.
Penny, who actually stood up for New Yorkers.
Well, that's what
while being
happened.
violently threatened.
You're criminalized
exactly. And then the DA
persecuted.
went after him.
And the thing is, if the local political leadership doesn't find solutions to repeat violent offenders, obviously Americans are going to do what it takes to protect themselves and to protect others. And so if you get punished for doing that, I mean, it's pretty infuriating.
And I
to
want
say
to
the least.
Yeah, I just want to say, ladies, there's a reason for this, okay? We don't have to wonder about why, they're leaning towards violent criminals while, throwing the book at you. It's percolating up from the prosecutorial level.
Yes.
We have these left-wing prosecutors, district attorneys scattered around the country, and guess who's behind that? It is George Soros and his affiliate organizations. He is funding this. This is not a coincidence. This is very intentional.
So sorry to interrupt you, Lindy. But I really am curious because I do see politically motivated prosecutions being carried out by Democratic prosecutors or left-wing prosecutors. But then you fast forward to the era that we're in now, and I don't think it's any secret that President Donald Trump wants the DOJ to specifically go after his political opponents. And look, I'm not going to say that every single prosecution is unfair. I'm sure in the case of John Bolton, it seems like they found classified documents and whatever. But what do you ladies make of Trump now as the president using lawfare against his political
opponents? I don't think we can have this discussion without laying down all the facts and what exactly happened to President Trump over the last couple of years. Let's start with Fani Willis, who decided to have an affair with her hand-picked prosecutor, Nathan Wade.
That was so
dumb. And by the way,
so dumb.
She paid him $650,000 of taxpayer funds for basically a do-nothing job. They were screwing around, going on vacation, and they were just dating on the job.
That was a disaster. I agree with you. She was a horrible prosecutor, and she was found.
And this is not just a qualitative judgment on this part. The Georgia Supreme Court threw her off her own case.
Yep.
So we have legal, the legal establishment just confirming what I said. That's case number one. And then we have Letitia James from New York, who campaigned on prosecuting Trump. That was one of her major campaign promises, okay? She literally promised the people of New York that she would find something. She didn't even know what it was. She wanted to find something and pin it on Donald Trump.
She ran her campaign on that.
Exactly. That's number two. Number three, Jack Smith. And Jack Smith was Merrick Garland's special prosecutor for the classified documents case and also the January 6th case. Jack Smith was on a very precise vendetta against President Trump. They were determined to take them down. That's 4 cases, 4 indictments against one man. They did everything they could to bankrupt him. So that is the context now for everything that's going on against Adam Schiff, Letitia James, John Bolton, and James Comey. I wanted to give that context because it would be entirely unfair if we just, completely admitted what happened to not only Trump, but also his family.
Right.
Letitia James got a $450 million verdict against Trump, and it was so flimsy that it was overturned by the judge.
It was an unprecedented prosecution. The crimes that he was convicted of, or what he had done, meaning the fraud that he had engaged in, is typically treated as a misdemeanor, but Fani Willis decided to treat it as something far more serious than that, as a felony, which is why he got that pretty serious prosecution and conviction. But what's really interesting is that what Fani Willis is being accused of, it seems like there's evidence to back it up, and it's the same issue, fraud, right? Mislabeling your primary residence in order to get a better interest rate on a home mortgage.
I think that was Letitia James. You said Fannie Willis.
Oh, I'm sorry, Letitia James.
No,
Yeah,
it's okay.
sorry about
It's okay.
that.
I just wanted to correct that.
Well, it's
But
interesting
Letitia James
because she's the one that valued Mar-a-Lago at what, $18 million, right? And it's like, if I was guilty of mortgage fraud, the last thing I'd be doing is basically going after my enemies for that thing.
Seriously?
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if I was
believe
guilty of it, the last thing I'd be doing is going after somebody
But
else
that's
for
the
it.
iron law of white projection. That's what
Yes.
they all do. They always accuse others of what they themselves are doing. It's the iron law of word projection.
I
Can I
also
just
think
say,
that they
I
were
think that
sorry.
Americans are so tired of the two-tier justice system.
Yeah.
If you broke the law in the United States of America and you are found guilty by, how does it work, a grand jury, and then your trial starts, then I think you should be charged
100%.
for that exact
I don't
thing.
care, left, right. I mean, I think that people would have more trust in our government if our government officials were treated the same as us, meaning if they break the
Exactly.
law, they get prosecuted. That's it. All right, why don't we move on to the government shutdown?
Absolutely. You know what, guys? We are now in day 17 of the government shutdown, and it doesn't look like there's any hope for any sort of reconciliation between the two sides. We have a lot to get into, and I want to explain what exactly is behind the stubbornness on the Democratic side and also the Republican side, and what is going on, and what will it take for us to finally find common ground on both sides. All right. Well, the main sticking point right now is government subsidies for health care and what is known as Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. The government, frankly, taxpayers have already spent $200 billion on these subsidies, and Democrats want to continue that. So there's something to be said about the fact that our health care premiums are going to go up by at least 200%. That's a lot. But my problem is that that doesn't correct the rot at the bottom. The rot at the bottom is Affordable Care Act. The Obamacare program was fundamentally flawed. They threw in people with pre-existing conditions into the general health pool. What do you think is going to happen? Everyone's prices are going to go up because if you throw in the sick with everybody else, everyone has to pay for it. And now we have a lot of people, including illegal aliens, and I love how Democrats, they try to deny it, but it's true. We have illegal aliens and people who are uninsured, and they treat our emergency rooms like health care. They do it. Do not deny it. Do not deny that. So the main sticking point is healthcare, but there are also a number of other issues. Meanwhile, the Senate has already voted at least 10 times, and it's been shot down 10 times to reopen the government. Democrats refuse to engage. Republicans are saying, we're happy to have that discussion, but we're not going to do that with a gun held to our head. We're not going to do that with a government shutdown. So this all is very interesting because we do have a very conspicuous Republican congresswoman who is breaking with her own party on this. And that is Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she's been actually on a roll in the past couple of months, not only on healthcare, by the way. She's also been very vocal on her opposition to Israel and many other issues.
Epstein files.
Epstein, exactly. Amy, you're always fantastic on that topic. But maybe if we want to play a clip of her.
Yeah. On Theovan.
Yes.
And I'm so disgusted with Washington, D.C. I hate politics. The two-party system is extremely broken. It is failing all of us. And when I look at, here goes another $100 billion to Ukraine or $30 billion to Israel, but yet nobody can afford health insurance premiums. And then I'm getting yelled at by my Republican colleagues for saying that out loud. I'm like, this is insane.
A woman of the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to mention one thing before I open it up to all of you is I want to explain the motive behind all of this. Why is this happening now? Why is it happening when Democrats literally in March voted for the same exact piece of legislation, not once, not twice, but 13 times? They voted for this continuing resolution. Why are they shooting it down right now? It's because Chuck Schumer learned his lesson. He was on a book tour in March, and then he got shouted down by his liberal base. He is scared, dare I say it, shitless, that he's going to be primaried by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so he's trying to out-left her and, in my opinion, out-socialist her in order to show the base that he is able to also be a strong progressive. And that is why we are in this discussion. We are in this situation because he is so scared for his political life.
I heard another conspiracy as well.
This isn't a conspiracy, by the way.
No, sorry. So what I'm about to say, sorry, as a follow-up, which relates to Chuck Schumer, this is more so a conspiracy because there isn't really any way to validate it. But apparently, Chuck Schumer is getting a lot of pressure from his party. He cannot reopen the government until after the No Kings protest has taken place, which is to take place this weekend, because it prevents the federal law enforcement to be able to come in as backup for the local and state law enforcement for take two of this No Kings protest, which I believe is due to take place, is it this weekend?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, literally tomorrow.
By the way, I love the No Kings protest because the name itself basically suggests that it's unnecessary. You think that if we had a king that we would have No Kings protest?
Exactly.
Okay, so I wanted to weigh in on a few things. Number one, one of the arguments that you've heard from Republicans in the Senate who don't want to extend the Affordable Care Act credits, which, by the way, they are set to expire in the beginning of the year. Healthcare premiums will double. So that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene is concerned about, and I really do commend her for being willing to speak about that, even though she's a Republican lawmaker. Okay, putting that aside. The issue about the undocumented immigrants using up our health care, the argument that you heard from Republicans is that the Democrats want the credits or our health care funding to go to illegal aliens. That's the argument they make. I looked into this because I was really curious about it. Like, is that really what they're asking for? And is that what Democrats have been doing? And the fact of the matter is, there are laws preventing federal money from being used on undocumented immigrants. However, states like California have not been enforcing that law, right? And so they do use Medi-Cal, which is the state's Medicaid service, in order to cover some undocumented people. And there have actually been audits into that to prove that that's happening. Now, in terms of the emergency rooms, you're right, Lindy. Anyone who needs to go to an emergency room, whether they're documented or undocumented, gets taken in. And I think that's really about where we are morally as a country, because what else do? Do you just reject them if they're having a medical emergency?
But there are plenty of people abusing the system. Illegal aliens understand that. They know that if they show up at the doorstep of the hospital, they're not going to be turned away.
Right. But I just
don't think it's our responsibility to care for people who aren't in our country. That's just my belief. I want to prioritize Americans. We have a limited number of resources. Money is a finite thing. It's a finite
totally get that. I totally get that. But the doctors have an oath to provide care to anyone, and they don't get mixed up into the politics of it, and really boils down to the question of okay, well then what do you do, right? I don't know if I want to turn people away if they're showing up to the emergency room.
The only way to fix that is to address it at the root, which is to slowly weed out the illegal immigrants so that they then stop showing up at, urgent care or into these emergency room situations. That's
sorry to chime in. On a moral level, I agree with her because it's well, what are these people supposed to do? They do treat it like a doctor's office because even in New York, going to the emergency room, you get in there and they're it's a 12-hour wait. Before they even get to do your vitals or anything. It's
By the way, they're not showing up with bullet wounds. They're just showing up with the regular,
they're treating it like a doctor's office. And I think morally, I can agree with you on that. But at the same time, I think the frustration comes from the root of the system. When you have illegal aliens that are being put up in luxury hotels in New York City, given free healthcare, free cell phones, 3 meals a day, and you have veterans out on the street, then that becomes a separate argument for the moral argument of well, why aren't we doing the same? Why aren't we putting the same energy and effort behind veterans?
Where's the moral outrage behind that?
And by the way, jump in about the Medi-Cal story as well, because I was looking into this, and it is very interesting because Gavin Newsom actually did request an extra $2.8 billion in funding for this on top of a $3.4 billion because they had such a deficit with the Medi-Cal program.
That's right.
So again, who's paying that? It is the American taxpayers that are having to foot the bill for that. And again, if you and I are paying, I'm sure, our own health insurance, it's extremely expensive. We all know that. And, like Isabella was saying, too, if you look to New York, if you look at these sanctuary cities, illegal immigrants have been coming in. They have been flooding in over the last 4 years specifically, and they've been getting essentially socialist America, if you will. They've been getting everything for free while we foot the bill. And regarding this government shutdown as well, because I know that you even mentioned this on the last show, that it costs us money to shut the government down, right? I was looking into it. It's
thank
like,
you for noticing that.
it was like, I want to say...
Because we had to pay interest on the on the
debt.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's costing us, like, I believe 7 to 15 billion per week to be shut down. And again, who is footing the bill for that? We are. Where is the care for average Americans?
Yeah, I also want to say Gavin Newsom should not be trusted with any sort of government funds. This is the same guy who blew listen carefully, $24 billion to solve the homelessness crisis. And just yesterday, people were arrested and indicted for misusing the funds. Someone spent $2 million on an Amex card.
Oh, they found where some of that went because they couldn't account for it for the longest time. That
just happened yesterday,
right?
And people were finally arrested and held to account. So frankly, nothing should be funneled California's way until Gavin Newsom is out of office. And you're truly spot on. And this is not just 1 or 2 people showing up at the emergency room. Let's be clear. We had 10 million people pouring across the border during Biden's regime. Those people are now treating our emergency room as the regular doctor's office.
Well, the Biden administration basically incentivized illegal immigration. So do I blame these people for coming over? Honestly, probably not. But at the same time, again, there's the moral argument where I think Americans are frustrated
it's a
because
broken system.
It's a broken system. It needs to be completely rebuilt because I don't know how you fix something.
It's definitely a broken system, and it's not up to the president to do immigration policy through executive orders. Like Congress, which is, the reason why Congress has such a low approval rating is because they don't ever do anything to fix what's broken in the country. So, the immigration policies that are necessary to fix this issue, including for people who want to come here legally, implementing or imposing a pathway to citizenship, that's really important, right? The one other thing I'll add is, so yesterday the Senate took another vote on funding the government. So really interesting things happened. It didn't pass, okay? It got 51 out of 51 votes. You need 60 votes in the Senate in order to pass the legislation. So John Thune, the Senate majority leader, decided, let's vote on a separate bill to keep the Pentagon funded, which I think is pretty gross, right? It's like, we want to make sure we've got the money for war, okay? Let's get that handled and taken care of. And then whatever happens with the government funding bill, we'll figure it out. Now, Democrats are messing up too, though, because if I were a Democrat in Congress, I would be hyper-focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's just to extend the credits for ACA so the healthcare premiums for Americans don't double at the beginning of the year. But now they're throwing in other things they want, including rehiring all the federal workers that had been laid off by the Trump administration. So, like, dude, tactically, strategically, focus on the healthcare. The federal workers are working their way through the courts, and the courts are ultimately going to decide. But in my opinion, Democrats couldn't be strategic if their life depended on it.
They're just a headless monster. They don't know what they're doing. That's why, by some accounts, they're at a 19% approval rating. So frankly, they're just a complete mess. But I'm really concerned about the fundamental issue that we haven't even addressed yet, which is why Democrats are handing all of these socialist giveaways to legal aliens. And that's because of this census. Every 10 years, states have to document how many people are in their state. And also, by some accounts, by some reports, if it weren't for illegal aliens, Democrats would lose 20 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. In California alone, they would lose 2 to 3 seats. And that is why they're saying, come over here, we'll give you free health care, education, housing, and whatnot. And until we correct that, I don't know how we can fundamentally address this issue, because this requires a constitutional amendment, which, of course, requires 3/4 of the states. So how do we reach that threshold?
Which should have been endeavored upon 2 election cycles ago, probably, after everything happened after the 2020 election, and people disputing that. I personally don't think that Congress worked hard enough, despite claiming that the election was stolen, to then implement any safe measures that would prevent that from happening again. Well, we need to be doing that. But even when you look at the last election cycle, California, it moved closer for Republican than it has historically, ever, or at least in a really long time, and that's without any of those measures being put in place. Imagine if we can implement just a few of those.
That was due to the fact that
Kamala Harris is so
voters.
Terrible.
Well, Kamala Harris, sure, that too. But it was like when you look at the state and local elections in California, the electorate in the state definitely moved to the right, and it's because there were two issues that they were being completely ignored on by our state and local leaders, and that was the issue of crime. And remember, 76% of Californians voted in favor of something known as Prop 36, which is meant to roll back some of the soft on crime policies, and our state legislature refuses to fund it.
Yeah.
At least adequately enough to actually implement it or impose it. And then immigration, right? There were Democratic voters who were telling their local leaders, Democratic politicians, look, I'm not against immigration, but this is getting out of control. We need to do something about this. And if they voiced their concerns, of course, they'd get smeared as bigots, xenophobes, all sorts of things. But no, look, you're right. Resources are finite. It doesn't make you a hater of immigration or immigrants if you want immigration to happen in a streamlined way that actually benefits the country.
And if it's happening right on your front door, what are you meant to do? Just not believe your lying eyes when you can actually see these things taking place firsthand? Like, granted, there are some swing states that maybe weren't as affected by immigration. Maybe it wasn't even their top 3 issues, but places like California, which isn't a swing state, but other swing states where this was real, it was happening, it was affecting the safety and well-being of women and children and just people in general.
Yeah,
like,
that's spot
you
on.
can't discredit them and tell them that their voice doesn't matter. Their complaints aren't valid when they're experiencing it.
You and I are immigrants, so you know,
I mean,
we did everything the right way. We followed all the laws. We didn't jump the line. I didn't storm the
despite
border.
there being no incentive for that at all.
Exactly.
But, you know, you either do the right thing or you don't.
I want to go back to your point because you mentioned a good point about Republicans didn't really do enough when it came to the election. It was kind of the same thing when they came in 2016 and they're like, you know, free speech, censorship. And then realistically, what did they do? And then 2020, as soon as Biden came in, you had people getting banned. I don't know at what point you were banned, by the way.
2020.
Okay.
21
So
era,
to my point, you had there was a ton of censorship, and it's like the same applies to this government shutdown. Can we blame Democrats? Yes, I do blame Democrats for this because realistically, this comes down to healthcare for illegal immigrants. In 1974, Congress passed the Congressional Budget Act, which basically said to split these things into 12 separate appropriation bills. There was a reason for that, so that one person, in this case, Chuck Schumer, wasn't able to hold the entire bill hostage because of one little aspect of it. Also, this is where Republicans are the problem because I love Thomas Massey. I find him, he's literally one of my favorite congressional members.
We love Massey here.
He's my favorite.
Yeah.
He came out in a video that he actually posted originally in 2018, but now we're in the same position we are again. And he basically explained that I also think when you don't do the 12 separate appropriation bills, you take away accountability from Republicans and Democrats. Realistically, let's say you have, 12 different bills, one's for healthcare and one's for, I don't know, the Defense Department. Realistically, who's going to vote on not paying our soldiers? Realistically, nobody. A lot of these bills can be passed really easily with bipartisan support. But again, like, this is where Republicans are the problem because why aren't you splitting up? Like, we know at this point that Democrats are going to kind of give you pushback on something. They'll find something to give you pushback. They're going to hold it over your head. That's exactly what we're doing. Also, real quick.
Yeah.
There is now the conversation being had. Well, Republicans are delaying the confirmation.
Yes.
It's because of the Epstein files.
Yes. And I want to talk about that because
Let's talk about it, yeah.
I saw the video of Mike Johnson and he got pushback because they were like, well, when we were in pro forma last time, we did Senate confirmations, we did confirmations. And he was like, well, that's because her family flew in. They're like, okay, well, if her family flies in, then can we do it? She is that 218 signature that they need. So then when you put this all together, like sitting on the fence, just kind of watching this unfold, yeah, it seems a little weird.
Yeah. So, sorry, I have to wait.
Go ahead, Anna.
You said so many interesting things that
I rambled on.
No. So look, I think Democrats are actually playing it smart if they hyper-focus on the healthcare element because if eventually they cave because it's important to fund the government and we don't get an extension on the Affordable Care Act credits, premiums are going to double. And Americans are going to blame Republicans for it because you now have Democrats on the record fighting pretty hard to get that extension. You have Marjorie freaking Taylor Greene fighting pretty hard to get an extension. So that's point number one. Point number two, so you're referring to the swearing in of Adelita Grijalva as a congresswoman. And Lindy, I'm so glad that you brought up the Epstein files because at least in the House, she would be the vote that would, in the House, allow for the release of the Epstein files, more transparency. I mean, you would also need the Senate to vote on it, but still.
And the Epstein files have kind of been like this huge thing because it's like,
it's now a bipartisan issue. You have O'Connor and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey leading the effort. We want to know who was trafficking these girls. Why is it too much to ask?
Now listen, the Biden DOJ sat on the files for 4 years, right? But it was basically a campaign promise that the files would be released, right? That we said we were going to get access to these files. Pam, they did that whole thing with the influencers at the White House. Yep. I have my own opinion on that. I don't necessarily know how I feel about.
I think we're all in agreement about that.
Why don't you tell us that opinion? I'm curious.
Yeah, I am curious.
You know what, Isabella, before you give your opinion, I actually got one of those binders and I was there that day.
You were there?
Oh, you were?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, she said unfortunately.
The reason why I am not pictured in that photo is because as soon as Pam Bondi brought out those damn binders, I knew exactly what she wanted, and it was a photo op.
Yes.
As soon as I saw it as well, my first immediate reaction was, this does not belong to influencers to take photos with. This is important information that should be released to the American people.
Right.
Now, we were told, and we were invited there to essentially sit with various members of the administration. This was back in February. First time I get invited to the White House. I'm so excited about it. And then this happens.
Wow.
And Pam Bondi comes in. We have no idea that this is going to happen. She brings out these binders. She hands them out. And again, everyone's getting really excited about it. My first initial reaction, again, I kind of go into reporter mode and I'm like, what's in this? And why is she handing out these binders? If this is information that they've been promising to the American public and that Donald Trump campaigned on releasing, why are they not releasing it publicly? And they were trying to basically tell us like, hey, wait until 3 p.m. We're going to have this press conference. We're going to announce all of this. Press conference never happened. Everyone starts taking photos with these binders. I stayed far away from the press because I was like, okay, let me figure out what's going on.
Honestly,
I
so smart.
That was
Honestly,
so smart.
good for you.
What I did is, as soon as 3 p.m. happened, I said, okay, just from a journalistic standpoint, this is what happened. This is what, I don't know what's in this binder. They handed us a lot of old information, as you guys know.
It's all redacted.
Exactly. There was really nothing new in these binders at all. And so I basically just tried to be a journalist and say, hey, this is what happened. This is the information that I have. And then to this day, I've still been calling, for the release of these files as well. Because like you said, why is this now an issue where Republicans kind of seems to be hiding this? This was a promise that we have failed on.
Well,
we
people in Congress specifically, though, not the people. I've never seen anything rally such bipartisan support, aside from maybe one other issue. But this specific issue, it's like 80% for Republicans and 90% for Democrats.
I mean, and Pam Bondi came out and said, oh, they're coming. We have a truckload of documents.
On my desk.
On my desk. Yeah. And then we come out like a couple weeks later.
I now have a term. I dub it the Pam Bondi syndrome. And it's just anytime there's something that she can use to get on Fox News, she will take that opportunity.
But it feels like a little bit of...
She put the... Honestly, like, I don't even want to call you an influencer. You do journalism, right?
Thank you.
But like the influencers and journalists, she wanted to use them as props. And that's pretty disgusting because that hurts their reputation
also
for her own political gain. That's so gross.
And if you're the Attorney General of the United States of America, you should not be worried about photo ops. You shouldn't be worried about Fox News hits. And again, I was sitting at a table.
That's her measure of success, though.
I was sitting at a table with Pam Bondi last week, and I looked her straight in the eyes, and I said, I hope you actually make some arrests to the Antifa terrorists who have been on the streets and are on camera committing federal crimes. Because right now, the American people do not have trust in the DOJ. No. They do not feel that the DOJ is doing its job. At this point in Merrick Garland's tenure as Attorney General, he already had 600 January 6ers who were arrested.
That's the one thing, sorry to cut you off, that I will say about Democrats. If I can give them credit for anything, when they want to do something, they 100% get it done.
So ironic because when I was a Democrat, we were like, oh, Merrick Garland.
Every single time.
When I was a Democrat,
every single time.
They waited until they got close. I mean, I think it was politically motivated, the timing, but they literally waited 3 years to start bringing prosecutions against January 6ers.
No, they didn't wait 3 years, though. Yeah, this was a long process that happened immediately
what you're thinking is that, Anna, you're right.
The prosecution of Trump specifically. Yes. I know they were arresting January 6th
and just different batches over the course. And it's funny because the day before I was arrested, an article had come out that the FBI and the DOJ were doing another series of mass arrests. And I was like, I just have to make it to November. It's like March. And then sure enough, I was arrested. So they were doing it in batches, but they 100% went after everybody that they possibly could. Also, parents who were speaking out against board meetings, school board meetings about the sexual content that was being pushed in their children's schools. Those people were arrested. Abortion facilities, people being praying outside of abortion facilities.
Yesterday, we got confirmation that the IRS did in fact target Republican organizations that were called Tea Party organizations under the Obama administration.
I mean, debanking conservatives and Christians.
Debanking the Trump family.
So look, the more the two parties, and this is my biggest issue and beef with Democrats, and this is why they lost big in this last election cycle, they've been so obsessed with making Trump the center of everything they do that they forgot that they're supposed to be public servants that give Democrats a reason to vote for them. What are your policy solutions? What are you going to do about the issues that we've had problems with and have been yelling about from the top of our lungs?
Out of touch with their voters.
And that's it. It was just Trump, 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 Trump. And to be honest with you, I just got sick of hearing about Trump. I get it. You guys don't like Trump. Trump bad. But what are you going to do to improve the lives of Americans?
That's fantastic. And let me tell you, it all comes down to Act Blue and NGP Van, because as soon as you throw around Orange Man bad, the money starts pouring in, and nothing else gets a fundraising going as Donald Trump.
You're right about that.
Anytime you say that there's a fascist menace, anytime you say that democracy is on the brink, we're about to lose it all, the republic is about to fall in shambles, the money starts pouring in, starts gushing, but nothing else, resonates with the liberal base as much.
That's really what they campaign on.
And
abortion, really. End of democracy, abortion. Well, they were really just relying on single-issue voters and people who bought into the propaganda.
At a time when people need something done about inflation, cost of living,
can't afford
crime,
groceries,
immigration. Should we move on?
Can I just talk one more point about the Epstein files? We're all women here, so I think we can probably agree. When I saw that picture, I honestly had a physical reaction because
Which picture do you mean?
The binder picture.
Oh, okay.
Because you have women that were trafficked, sexually abused, will most likely never be the same, are very traumatized after something like that. And now we're putting them, all their names, all these victims who have all these trauma and have been through the most horrible things, in a binder, and we're holding it up, smiling.
And then after saying, but we're not going to actually do anything about it. And by the way, there is no list. Like it's not, what you just said is so demeaning. But to then follow that up with,
it's a slap in the face. And honestly, I give you so much credit because I think a lot of people in your position would have, just like everyone else there, just went along with the crowd and held up the binders. And I really commend you for that because I genuinely couldn't. My jaw was on the floor. I couldn't. If the Biden administration had done something like that, can you imagine the outrage? I mean, rightfully, we should all be outraged. But then again, first of all, influencers are not, subject to information, or they're not first priority for information more than the American people. Okay?
Exactly.
Just because you have a following on social media doesn't make you more entitled to information than anybody else who wants the information just as badly. Then on top of that, you say you have a truckload of these documents. You give out a binder full of victims' names and heavily redacted information and information that's already been released. On top of it's just adding insult to injury. Do you expect people to buy this?
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Thank you for having integrity. Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move on. I just want to say one last thing, and it's that it's as though they didn't even live through 2012. Do you guys remember how much flack Mitt Romney caught by having binders full of women?
I know. I thought about
literally
the same
thing happened.
It's crazy.
You gotta. History rhymes, folks.
And it's simple. We just want to know who trafficked women and children. We want to know who's responsible. I don't care if they're Republican. I don't care if they're Democrat.
Same.
If you're a pedophile, you're a pedophile. And you should never.
Gotta go.
You should never be anywhere near government. You should never be near people in general.
All right.
You need to be publicly shamed. Exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Anna is now going to dive deep on a shocking turn that Marjorie MTG has made on the topic of immigration.
Yes, and to be 1,000% clear, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican Congresswoman, is still very much in favor of Trump's immigration and deportation policies. She does have a gripe with one element of it that she thinks can be tinkered with so it works a little better for Americans and American businesses. So without further ado, here's what she had to say.
As a conservative and as a business owner in the construction industry and as a realist, I can say We have to do something about labor, and that needs to be a smarter plan than just rounding up every single person and deporting them just like that.
So I'm going to give you a little more of what she had to say. She was on the Tim Dillon show as she was talking about this. And again, just want to reiterate, she is not against what Trump wants to do with deportations. She just has a problem with how it's being done because there's really no off-ramp when it comes to certain industries that rely heavily on undocumented workers. So I looked into this, and the Baker Institute did some analysis on the percentage of undocumented labor in certain industries. So this isn't it, but it's 34% of the workforce in the construction industry is actually made up of undocumented immigrants. As you heard Marjorie Taylor Greene say there, she has a construction business, so she's probably experiencing this firsthand. Approximately 41% of workers were undocumented in the agriculture industry. I don't think that's very surprising. And then undocumented workers made up an estimated 1.7 million workers in the food supply chain as of 2023. So there's a lot of undocumented workers out there, right? And mind you, when you have a situation where a huge percentage of the workforce is undocumented, they get paid under the table. They don't have to abide, or the employer doesn't have to abide by the same minimum wage standards, and that ends up lowering wages for low-skilled workers. So it's a problem for American citizens. There's no question about that. However, it's also a problem to do round a bunch of people up and do mass deportations without having like an off-ramp or a plan in place to ensure these businesses don't get completely and utterly destroyed, which would then in turn destroy the economy. So what is she suggesting here? One more video and then I'll open it up to the panel.
I'm going to speak from very real experience. We have a labor force in America across many industries that has been built on illegal labor. That's a fact. That also cannot be ignored.
Right.
And I'll say it like this. The same way I look at the health insurance industry and I'm analyzing, we need to build an off-ramp, but an off-ramp is gradual, right? Off of the Affordable Care Act, off of Obamacare into some sort of new system that is much better. I also look at this problem that we have with illegal immigration, that we can build an off-ramp there.
Okay, so I'm going to go to you first, Savannah, because I know this is your beat, and I'm really curious what you think about what she's saying here.
So at first, I think I had the visceral reaction of like, okay, what are we doing here, Marjorie? But, you know, I have heard the proposals that business owners should be given about a year to come in and slowly start replacing those workers who may be undocumented. Because like she is saying, if you come in and you completely upend these industries, it is going to be a problem. Obviously, we can't just wave a magic wand and get rid of this issue. It's ingrained into American society. I have heard this firsthand from many business owners as well. So I think you give an opportunity to these business owners to come in, replace that workforce, and then after a year, you know, if it needs to be 2 years, we can discuss that, then start imposing fines on businesses who are bringing in undocumented labor, because like you said, Anna, there is a very big issue with these people being underpaid. A lot of people do describe this as like, you know, like modern day slave labor, if you will. And so, you know, you need to hold the business owners responsible as well. But again, this does need to be a process that, like Marjorie said, has an off-ramp.
I love that you brought, sorry to interrupt, but I love that you brought up the business owners being fined, because, you know, there was a pretty high-profile ICE raid that took place at a California farm. It was a marijuana farm.
With the kids?
With the kids, yeah. So that story is super interesting because of the nuances in it. So there were undocumented children working at a marijuana farm, right?
Which Gavin Newsom was so like, oh, let them work.
Yeah.
I hope the kids work.
And this isn't just happening in California either. This is a big issue.
It is a big issue for sure. And so I'm against child labor, period, end of story. So I'm not going to in any way defend what that marijuana farm was doing. But there was no consequence for the employer. And I'm just like, the employer was employing not just undocumented immigrants, but child labor.
Right.
The other thing I'll say is, I think the Trump administration needs to be a little careful with how they're deploying ICE to do these raids, because there was an American veteran who was there at the farm specifically to provide security. Retez is his last name. And they rounded him up and they detained him for 3 days, even though he's an American citizen. And he kept trying to explain to them, I'm an American citizen. I am not undocumented. I'm an American veteran. And they arrested him anyway. There's also this video that came out of Chicago featuring a local news reporter. She's an older woman. It doesn't look like she was there causing problems. And in fact, after the authorities, the ICE, arrested her, they ended up letting her go without any charges. But I want you guys to take a look at this video. The New York Post actually uploaded this.
Sir, what's your name? What's your name?
Debbie Brockman, I work for WGN. Let them know.
I got you. Yep. Debbie Browning?
Brockman.
Brockman, WGN. Do you guys want to share your names too, or I'm just going to cover your face?
Couldn't cover your face a couple years ago. Real thing.
Okay, Mr. Condemnation.
I don't think the bystanders make the situation better. To be
Okay,
honest.
and I have to jump in
Wait,
on this story
watch this
too.
last part, though.
Get the down. No, this is some bullshit.
So they just, and then they just drive away. So like,
Okay, so one, this vehicle got in front of the ICE vehicle because they were trying to block the operation, or I guess this arrest from happening. Two, the DHS press secretary did come out and state that this woman was trying to assault federal officers.
no, that was definitely claimed. But
Okay,
then they
good.
let her go without any charges because there was no evidence.
I did see that
Yeah.
too. And, you know, that is a big issue as well. It's like, okay, if we're arresting people, how do we not have any evidence that this woman was
Exactly.
assaulting ICE agents? Because, you know, there is a huge propaganda war going on right now.
There is, yep.
Especially with the ICE agents, because a lot of the protesters, a lot of these journalists that are being arrested are oftentimes being violent or impeding
I'm sure they're trying to
federal
provoke a
proceedings.
reaction.
Exactly. So there is an issue with that simultaneously, and I believe a judge did just bring this forward and state that these DHS officers have to start wearing body cams. Good.
Good.
Let's see how that what happened with that when we started having police officers wear body cams. We had the
Change the
truth
narrative
come out.
so much.
Exactly. So I think we need to do the exact same thing
I
because
agree,
you can't be
yeah.
arresting people and then not have any evidence of what's going on.
Body cams was the worst thing to happen for BLM, by the way.
yeah.
So yeah,
and it'll be the worst thing to happen,
yeah.
you know,
All of
to all of
these-
these people attacking ICE.
What would have been considered racially charged attacks by police officers, when they reviewed the body footage, were able to see that, no, I was defending myself.
Not that BLM really
wearing
cared
the cameras,
anyways.
I think wearing the cameras, it works in a positive way in two different ways.
Oh, because you kind of have to conduct
Yeah,
yourself in a better
you
way.
know that you're being
It's a
recorded.
Hawthorne effect. You act
Exactly.
differently when you know that you're under surveillance.
Yeah, so I'm totally in favor of the cameras.
Also, I feel like these environments that these agents are in are very hostile. I mean, you hear them being harassed or spit on.
They are being threatened, okay? We have these
Yes.
politicians inciting violence against, inciting stochastic terrorism against ICE agents simply for doing their jobs. And frankly, I'm more sympathetic to ICE agents than I think anybody here. They are reacting to 4 years of complete dereliction of duty on the border. We had 10 million, perhaps even more, 10 million people pouring into this country. They should not be here. They shouldn't. They broke the law. They desecrated everything that we believe in, and now they are using up our resources. That's what's happening. That is my view. And another thing I want to address is we cannot have this discussion comprehensively without addressing the H-1B visa program, which is another area in which immigrants are taking advantage, exploiting the system.
Well, corporations are exploiting the system for cheap
Also,
labor, right?
the
Because
people
these are
coming in-
high-skilled visas. These are people who come in from various countries. I believe India
is a primary,
is the primary country they're coming from, and they're essentially taking jobs from Americans in the tech sector. By the way, at a time when AI is also leading to mass layoffs among, you know, people who are newer in the tech sector.
Yes,
Recent
absolutely. Here,
graduates.
I got to give President Trump a lot of credit for his recent directive. He is now charging companies $100,000 per H-1B visa program individual participant. That is a huge incentive to ensure that companies will now favor American employees over foreign
I do have to
imports.
say, Lindy, I believe that initially when that announcement was made, either it was they misspoke or they backtracked, but it was going to be per year, was the initial claim, and that's what would really create an incentive, because if you're paying $100,000 per
Exactly.
year, there is no way that investment is going to that's going to be cheaper
actually,
than paying an American worker,
well,
right? But
some
then
tech
they
salaries are
backtrack
millions
on
of
it,
dollars.
and now it's just $100,000 per application. Why not keep that original commitment to say that, no, we're going to charge this each and every year?
It's only
sector
for
has
new H-1B
funded-
visas
exactly.
as
They're
well.
not
It's
gonna
not for the
grandfather.
old H-1B visas. And then also regarding H-1B visas, oftentimes many of the people, like specifically from India, there's a lot of fraud in which they have like mills where they're giving out fake degrees.
That's
and
what
then
I mean.
you have,
It's not just companies taking advantage of it. It's individuals using this program
there's
trying to
a
sneak
lot
into our
of
country.
fraud.
Thank you,
There's a lot of
Savannah.
asylum
Exactly.
fraud going on as well. And if you take a peek at the numbers, because I've been doing a deep dive, I just got back from Minnesota. You have a huge Somali population there, not even to just target the Somali population, but it's a good example of how you have people who have been in the country for decades. They do not want to assimilate to the United States of America.
exactly.
They don't even want to speak English. They came over here seeking asylum, but then they are sending all of their money back home. And they are going back home to visit because there clearly isn't a worry about safety here. So there's a lot of fraud in our immigration system that, again, is negatively impacting our country. And you now have an entire generation of first-generation children of immigrants who, again, have no ties to our country, our nation, our values, have no want to even make the country better or contribute to it in any positive way. So there needs to be significant immigration reform in this country.
And
I
babies,
love-
like you have brought up on previous
Exactly.
episodes as well. There's whole operations.
So just
around
explain anchor babies to our audience. It's when these women, there's a whole industry surrounding it now. Women come to the United States, have the babies, pop them out, and then they leave because now their babies are American citizens and they hit the jackpot.
Savannah,
And Lindy,
you said
can I-
something. Sorry, you said something that I really appreciated because it's not really immigration that's the problem. It's mass migration without assimilation. That's the problem.
I just think it's mass migration, period.
Mass migration without yes, it's mass migration. I mean, but realistically, if you look at, Dearborn, Michigan literally looks like a third world country. It doesn't even look like a city in America. There are certain cities in Texas that don't even look recognizable. And
I think that's why Charlie Kirk resonated with so many people, millions of people around America. I'm just going to come out and say it. We have a culture worth preserving here. If you want to come to America, please learn English. It's the least we can ask you to do.
And can I give you guys an idea, too, of what the anchor babies in the United States of America are doing? Because I actually had firsthand experience with one in front of the Portland ICE facility. Now, this person was actually arrested because the night prior he was assaulting agents, and then he was also telling them, like, I'll F you up, threatening these agents. Again, just to give you guys an idea of what various ICE agents across the country are going through. Outside of the Portland ICE facility, they spray painted across the entire building, the only good cop is a dead cop, shoot ICE pigs, kill Trump, these people are Nazis and fascists. You have a poster they put up that says, kill your local Nazi, next to a photo of Charlie Kirk getting shot in the neck.
were any of them raided by the FBI?
What do you mean?
Were any of them
Yeah,
raided by
that's a
the
good
FBI?
question. That's a good question. And then, back on July 4th, they zip-tied this building closed, this ICE facility, and tried to light it on fire with ICE agents on site. Inside. You've got ICE agents across the nation that have been getting shot at. You have these ICE facilities that are completely under siege. And again, where's the federal government on this? The fact that this is still being allowed to go on is ridiculous. In Portland, they basically have a 3-strike rule where as long as you're not arrested 3 times, third time you're going to get a felony charge, but first and second, it's just a citation. So
Well,
the
tell you
federal
why
government
Portland
is
isn't
sending,
doing anything. It's
federalized National Guard troops to cities to deal with it.
I can tell you exactly why. It's because it's under Democratic leadership right now.
Yeah.
like their police officers won't even do anything.
I mean, they definitely benefit in some financial way from the chaos. I feel like if they didn't, it wouldn't continue.
Well, they
as
want to
long
make
as it
President
does.
Trump look bad. They just
Well, that
do.
too.
Yeah,
We even have we covered it the last time the No Kings took place, the migrant alerts where they could literally send out blasts of the locations of ICE agents.
Well, they were using the Ring
And
doorbell
by the
app
way,
to communicate with people.
Like, those types of threats, I'm sure, is what's making these ICE agents as aggressive as they are in some of the raids that we're seeing. So it's not very smart and it's not very tactical to be someone who's against the raids that are happening while threatening, the lives of the ICE agents, because that's going to, honestly, it's going to get them wired and like ready to fight.
I think that's absolutely accurate. And another thing I want to say is like Isaac Newton is still relevant like 500 years on, because he said, you know, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. We are now in the reaction phase. People are extremely upset about millions of people pouring into the country, and now we are holding strong. We are finally having a citadel, finally enforcing national borders. And also, I want to remind folks what happened when you don't enforce national borders. The Roman Empire fell for a number of reasons. One of the primary reasons, though, was porous borders. They did not enforce their national sovereignty. We should learn from history in order to keep I'm very proud of this American empire. I want it to keep going. We should make sure that we do everything we can to actually shore up our country.
I just want an immigration system that works and works to benefit this country, where there's actually law and order, where there's actual justice for people who want to come here legally. That's what I want. I also want to have a little bit of fun.
Exactly. Amy's going to talk about the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl halftime show. And more specifically, though, the fact that Turning Point USA is actually putting forth a counter program to that. So I'm really curious to know what you ladies think about that. Since Charlie Kirk's assassination, Turning Point has not slowed down. It seems like, you know, looking at the impact and the legacy that Charlie left, especially this Christian revival that we're seeing around the country, they're going harder than ever. And the latest feat is this incident where they are going to be counter-programming the Super Bowl. Now, this comes as a direct kind of reaction to the news that Bad Bunny was actually going to be the halftime performer for the Super Bowl. And like, let me just preface by saying this. I'm not a super qualified person to speak on the Super Bowl. A couple of years ago, I literally thought it was a salad. I'm newly American, okay? So I don't really know. But from the research that I have conducted, the halftime performers aren't necessarily the, you know, gold star of American values typically. However, I can see why people are a little bit more upset with Bad Bunny being the chosen option for a number of reasons. You know, he has refused to stand during the national anthem. He has flat out said that he refuses to tour in the United States because he doesn't want ICE agents.
Yeah, but he'll do the Super Bowl though.
He'll do the Super Bowl apparently.
Yeah, he's worried that his concerts will draw. Obviously, like I don't know if it's reggaeton, if that's
something like that.
But anyway, his crowd is going to draw in a lot of, you know, Latinos, Hispanics, stuff like that. He's worried that that's also going to draw in ICE.
I love Kristi Noem's response to that. She's like, yeah, we'll totally be there.
Well, yeah, I mean, they say that they're going to send ICE to the Super Bowl. So he was right. He was totally right.
100%. And I mean, he is American. Obviously, Puerto Rico is a territory of these United States. But like you said, by virtue of that type of music, it will attract people who, you know, may possibly be the target of ICE. So we can see that TPUSA made this official announcement. They said, we are thrilled to announce the all-time halftime show performers, events, and details are coming soon. So they are basically framing this around faith, family, and freedom. They are appealing directly to the conservative base. And this survey that they have on their website is particularly humorous. We're going to play a video after that kind of explains why this is so funny. But they put up this survey. What music genres would you like to see featured? And the very first option is anything in English.
Gosh,
Now, this is in direct response to Bad Bunny going on Saturday Night Live. And Brandon, I believe we have that clip. Let's go ahead and play that instead of me explaining it.
And if you didn't understand what I just said, you have 4 months to learn.
All right. Okay. So that's a little bit offensive. To your point, and to all of us, what we were just talking about, when you come to another country as an immigrant, I mean, and he's American, again, do want to state that, but you should want to assimilate. It's so interesting. When I moved from Maui, Hawaii, I lived there for 4 years, and then I moved to Miami. When I first got to Miami, guys, I had to learn Spanish because of the Uber and Lyft drivers that refuse to assimilate. So even basic words like stop, go, wrong way, no, yes, they didn't understand these things. I had to learn a different language just to be able to safely get from A to B in my Ubers here in Miami.
Well, that's crazy. Like, if you're employed and you are providing a service to English speakers, you need to know how to speak English.
It's
I
so
agree with you on that.
common, though.
But hold on. Let me just finish my point. I don't care if he speaks Spanish. Like, I really don't.
Who, Bad
like,
Bunny, you're saying?
Yeah.
This is an American cultural event, though. I do want to say, though, Anna, you make a good point, but there's a man named Gavin Newsom who doesn't seem to think so. In California, he's not enforcing the law that requires truck drivers to understand English.
Gavin Newsom's a nightmare. You're not going to get a defense of Gavin Newsom from me, so don't.
I mean, listen, you would think that it's, an obvious point, but there's a lot of Democrats who would argue otherwise.
I just think, like, can we just... I'm not trying to say that entertainers should never involve themselves in political discussions. What I am saying, though, is I'm kind of exhausted of politics, like, infiltrating literally every waking moment of our lives, like every sporting event, I'm just exhausted by it.
I want to add on
he's
to
going
what
to do
you
a
said,
few
though.
performances, he's going to do a few songs, and then immediately after, everyone's going to forget about it, and we're going to move on.
I want to add on to that, because I here and there will occasionally listen to Bad Bunny mixed in with my George.
He's got the music!
Listen, I like it. I like his music. But to your point, like, I think that there's other aspects of it. Do I really care if Bad Bunny does a halftime show? No, not really.
Same.
But when you have people that are, like, sitting for the national anthem, it goes back to the frustration that conservatives have, which is that why are we propping up people that seem to hate me and my values and the country that we live in?
Right.
And so I think for the last, I don't know how many years, the Super Bowl halftime show, like many other political sporting events, have become super politicized and turned into essentially propaganda events. I don't want to see it. And
I
so
agree.
I think having Turning Point USA is kind of like a counter to that. It's probably going to be pro-family. You're probably not going to see anything sexual. You're probably not going to see any propaganda. You're probably not going to have to tell your kids to leave the room. It'll just be an all-American sporting event. Again, I don't care that Bad Bunny performs. I sing in Spanish, guys. I don't know what I'm saying.
I'm right there with you, actually.
What would you guys want to see if you did have your option?
Morgan Wallen.
Oh my God, he'd be amazing.
Morgan Wallen.
At Valuetainment, all the unusual suspects, shout out to you guys. They're all like, Creed or nothing, Creed or nothing.
Wait, Creed? Really? Like 15 years
Kid
ago.
Rock, Creed. But here's the question.
Not
Do you
Kid Rock,
think
no.
that the average American citizen would actually want to see Creed more than they would want to see Bad
Actually,
Bunny?
yes. I think that Creed has definitely made a comeback. Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Bad Bunny.
Go to your local
Creed right now.
Go to your local bar and people are singing Creed.
That's
it's a thing now.
Wow.
Do you rather
Creed
Creed
is
than Bad Bunny?
No, okay, first off.
His music, have you listened, like, I'm sorry.
I love
Again.
the Creed, but I'm saying the average American is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think Creed over Bad Bunny. Again, if Bad Bunny's not even touring, the average American is like, okay, who cares? Yeah. I really do think that regarding what you guys were saying, with Bad Bunny performing, great, go ahead and perform. Don't make it political. This is
I agree.
NFL. Go ahead, end racism in the freaking end zone.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
But I think when
Just
he's fun for once, and actually appreciate people's talent, and enjoy the performance, whether you decide to do the Turning Point thing or the, Super Bowl halftime
I think
thing.
he makes it
I'm
political,
really-
though, when he sits for the national anthem.
I agree.
Just months
Guys,
before
I
he's going to be at the Super Bowl. Like, then it seems like you're already making it political, and we're not even at the Super Bowl yet.
I'm really sympathetic to your point, Anna, but at the same time, he's the one who made it political by making a statement by saying, I'm not going to tour in the United States because I'm afraid that my supporters are going to get rounded up by ICE.
Yeah.
He said that, though. He started it.
He did say that.
He made himself very political, so obviously it's just a continuation of that.
Which is why I'm happy Turning Point is coming in as a counter to that, because I think it'll be good to have a little bit of both.
And by the way, guys,
this is nothing. Thoughts. Like, what do you think the viewership will be like? Like, do you think a big part of the base that would usually watch the Super Bowl will then be? Do you think it'll be 50-50, 75-25?
People love to hate watch.
People are going to be
There's a
paying any
phenomenon
attention, to be
called
honest.
fist watching.
Think about how you consume the Super Bowl, how you watch the Super Bowl. I'm with my friends. We're having a Super Bowl party.
I'm
looking at the snacks.
Watching. Yeah.
I'm refilling
I only
the
watch a
snacks.
halftime concert,
Yes,
actually.
me too.
I could see with the momentum of Turning Point, especially after Charlie's death this year, a huge portion of people tuning into this.
Yeah.
And again, I think people just want to watch something that is the values of America, which just means, like you guys were saying, the values of America is us being able to come together and just enjoy a halftime show without these overt political messages being pushed, without the over-sexualization and this propaganda being pushed. I mean, let's not forget the Olympics and their opening ceremony. People were exhausted seeing that because it was like, what is this? Why can't we just have a regular opening ceremony in which we are seeing a reflection of our country, what we can do, our entertainment, something that we can all enjoy? And yeah, like you guys said, I think a lot of people will come into this.
This is why a lot of people are celebrating Trump, because he signifies the de-wokeification of American society. And I think a lot of people are excited about that. But I also want to remind you folks, this is nothing new. This hand-wringing and freaking out over the Super Bowl star, this happens every year. Literally every year.
Remember Janet Jackson?
Janet Jackson, her boob, and Justin Timberlake, that happened.
That was
and
crazy.
Also, Kendrick Lamar last year, people were pissed off. People were pissed off about Beyonce.
Oh, that was like during his beef with Drake or whatever.
Exactly.
Well.
And by the way, Drake lost that lawsuit.
Perfect.
Drake, I watched it very closely. And then people were upset with Katy Perry's Left Shark. Every year, there's another
it's on
purpose, it's part of the it's part of the American tradition, though, to get pissed off about.
We're haters, okay?
We
like to hate. We like to hate.
So, as much as we hate this process of hating, it's just going to continue because we love, we just love trashing the, this is called angertainment.
You guys have been amazing.
Yeah,
what a fun panel.
It really was.
It was so good to have you.
Thanks for having us, y'all.
Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. It was such a pleasure to have everyone. Amy, where can we find you?
You guys can check out my show, Dangerous Conversations, on YouTube. I'm Amy Dangerfield across every platform, and you can also message or call me on Connect as well.
Savannah.
Y'all can follow me on X at SavSays or follow my YouTube, SavSays as well.
You guys can follow me on Instagram and X at Isabella DeLuca.
Anna?
You can Connect me. I'm over at Connect, and you can follow my show daily at youtube.com/theyoungturks.
I'm Lindy Leon Connect and everywhere else. Thank you so much for joining in. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share. You guys are the best. We love you so much.